If you go around my channel, this is not the type of videos you will find. I usually avoid sharing my own views and opinions when the video itself is about facts, but this video will be an exception. Today I'll be talking about the coronavirus, the same thing that Trump's called China virus. Now I wouldn't go much in details of what this virus actually is. There are just dozens of articles, videos and content on the internet to which you can actually learn about the symptoms and cautions to prevent yourself. What I would like to talk about is how I feel of this virus, where we might be standing in, let's say, 1 or 2 months. What can possibly occur in the worst case scenario? When I initially heard about the outbreak of this virus in China 2-3 months back, I remember it not affecting me that much. I mean, let's be honest, none of us knew anything about it and what it can possibly turn out to be. And for a while, I also believed in people condemning it to be some sort of neglection by humans, which I don't deny. I mean, it's possible, but the point here is that it didn't personally make me feel unsafe. 2 months later, we are standing at over 300,000 cases and with over 12,000 deaths already. And with the toll increasing at an exponential rate daily, all the global sporting events already cancelled or either postponed, suddenly you don't feel quite as unsafe. But the irony is that it still fails to impact a lot of us and our lifestyles. This might change as it approaches more closer to us, but then I start to think about the World War II. When did possibly humans realize how big did it have become? It stresses me to think that we might not get laid. And if you're somehow watching this from a place with not much identified cases already, I want to not only remind you the situation of Italy and how deadly it got in just a span of 25 days, but I also want to let you know that the virus only gets identified after it is tested by its respective measures. And the reality is that over 90% of the countries has at least one single case confirmed, which, looking at its contagiousness rate, convinces us that it will or already had transmitted it to anyone else. As it approaches more closer to us, I start to think that how powerless I feel. I agree when people say that we should not panic and we should not follow the latest developments of it, but I also think that as we learn more and see more of its impact on the world, it makes us more cautious towards it, for which I suggest you a website where you can see the count of the affected cases. I will link it below in the description. From this point, I would also like to talk about the issue of fake news, false remedies and rumors. I appreciate the decision taken by some countries issuing a punishment for people spreading false news to reduce this problem. I know that this might not be a case in every part of the world, but it's a massive problem and challenge in our region. I would want you to educate yourself by verifying any news or rumor you hear. You can verify them by going over to any verified platform such as the website of the World Health Organization. I'll also link this website down below for your ease. Thinking of how big will it be or what the situation might get, I personally feel it's too early to predict anything. The Spanish flu lasted 2 years, the Asian flu also lasted around 2 years, and we're just 4 months into this one, and it has already changed our lifestyles and our perspectives. I would also agree that this has to be the biggest challenge of our modern world in our lifetime. Due to all this uncertainty, panic buying had also increased significantly, but as much as I've heard this happening in the western side of the world, I really haven't seen this happening on that scale in our country, at least for now, because of which I don't feel I know enough to talk about it. But I do feel that the basic concept of panic buying is as simple as it seems, has pretty disturbing consequences, such as running out of food and eventually people dying of starvation, if not the virus, especially in places where people are paid for the day rather than the entire month. But I do end up hoping that the governments and the state authorities around the world come up with a solution to this, as it has become a problem that the entire world has been going through. I will also be linking some articles that I read while researching for this video for those who have interest in this particular topic. I guess people are also doing this all panic buying stuff because of the uncertain feeling everyone is having about what could happen next. People are scared, or are they? It appears to me that people are still carrying on with their usual lifestyle. In fact, the other day I saw more people in a popular supermarket than I usually did before. I'll listen to people talking about how low the mortality rate of this virus is and that common cold kills more people than this virus does. I'm no expert at this, but this number of deaths in this span of time doesn't seem something not to be cared of. You might ask, what is the mortality rate? In simple words, it's the death rate. It means how likely are you to die if you are tested positive. You can easily find it by dividing the number of deaths by the total cases and multiplying that by 100. but as a lot of mild cases don't get to the hospital and eventually not get tested, some of those don't get counted, which makes the mortality rate lower than the one you find from the equation. At the time of recording this video, I got around 4.1%. But of course it will be a lot lower than that. But when the virus has this low of mortality rate, the contagiousness rate is a lot higher. This means that if the low mortality rate helps keeping the total number of deaths less, the high contagiousness contributes in the increment of the death toll, which is exactly what is happening in this case. For a reference here, common cold has a mortality rate extremely low of 0.01%, but its contagiousness rate is 6, which is higher. Being comparatively a more active internet user, during this time I came across people with two completely different mindsets. A significant part of the community claims this virus is yet another conspiracy. Another set of people believe this to be an end of the world. I think these two are very extremes. In fact, personally, the conspiracy one doesn't even make any sense to me, and neither am I convinced for this to be an end of the world. I think some people are overthinking consequences a lot, and they should rather try to stay in the present. I'm also worried about the hospitals around the world and how will they manage this emergency situation, because the truth is that hospitals around the world are absolutely not ready to control this level of emergency. And while you do bring countries like US and China into perspective, you must bring less and underdeveloped countries as well, after which this entire thing gets a bit more worrying. I also really find this funny that even after massive developments in science and technology in the last couple of decades, the way we tackle this disease right now is exactly how we would have dealt it with 1,000 years ago, that is relying on our immune system. And while we do talk what's going on, it's important for us to appreciate and support the efforts of the health department. Appreciate by, of course, appreciating, and support by taking the necessary precautions they advise. I do think during all this, we as citizens of this world have an important role to play during this crisis. You see, it wasn't very hard for me to isolate myself at home, as even prior to this I spent a lot of my time at home playing games or preparing for the exams that are now delayed. But I can understand that staying at home can be challenging for people who spend most of their time outside of their homes. But this is exactly how we can play our part, changing our lifestyles. At the end of this video, you will find few simple precautions as a reminder. It's possible that you may have already seen them before, but I personally feel that when you are reminded of something over and over again, it does change your behavior towards it even when you're not thinking of it. And while we are seeing not so good news every day about the virus, cities are being locked down, did you notice that there is less pollution, less nature destruction, and as humans panic, the mother nature is healing? I mean, I don't remember the last time I saw most of the air travel completely stopped in my entire life, and that even on a global scale. It also surprised me that how over the years we destroyed the nature. Events like Australian bushfire and floods around the world are just few of the many proofs of human cruelty. It seems as if the nature is slowing us down. I don't expect this video to physically change anything, but I do hope that it changes perception of someone who wasn't aware of the ground realities. All I hope is for the world to be a better place for everyone, and that everyone living here stays safe and happy.